We're all quiet. I was wondering whether we really should be quiet when it starts. I've been thinking about that a lot, like because there's a lot of drop and people don't know what's happening, and then people are just like, I don't even know why they're doing this. It doesn't
Do
make
we
any
have
sense.
opening music, Victor?
I don't know if we need open music. I think we just keep talking like they
We
just
could
like
all just be
walking.
There's a
crazy
few
and over
ones.
the top of it. Yeah,
Theme.
we could all
Watch
just
the
be
first
crazy
few
and over the
ones.
top of each other, and then suddenly, oh, welcome, you're here.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thought. Is we just talk through it. All right. Thanks everybody. I have a great day. Good
Go
seeing
enjoy
all of
your
you.
edit. Are you doing
Yeah.
the
Good
edit
edit.
on location, or are you monitoring it remotely?
I'm doing it on location.
Alex,
Okay.
Alex, check your
It's
email.
happening all over the place.
Alex, check your email.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Copy.
Bye guys.
See ya. All right, so here we are. Welcome welcome YouTube. If you're watching this, if you're like me and you're flicking through YouTube and you go, what is this icon with all these people on it? And you bothered to click it because something fantastic appeared as the name of this event. You'll know that because Jeffrey Powers joining us here. He manages all that. So Jeff does a lot of work. Hey Jeff.
Woo!
Jeff does a lot of work keeping our YouTube channel looking awesome and good. So if you're watching this discussion about media production and streaming and all things audio and video, and you want to participate more than just watch it on YouTube, you need to follow the link down below, and that'll bring you to the Zoom meeting that we do every morning at 6. We start at 6 a.m. First hour is very low key. The second hour, which is what you're actually watching, is where we start to respond to questions and answers that come in. So if you're watching on YouTube and you want to participate, get here on time. If you really want to get involved, it's pretty easy to actually be on this panel. It looks very special and elite. It's not. It's just I happen to get here early and raise my hand. So the people that are here, not to say that these aren't great people. These people have a collective knowledge that blows my mind every day. But you raise your hand, we let you in. We do want you to sound pretty good. We'd prefer that you look okay. I look like I'm being, I look like a hostage. I'm making hostage video here. These other guys look really good. And that's what we do. We just sit around and we talk about the kind of stuff that, quite frankly, if you were at the family dinner, everybody would roll their eyes at you if you started any one of these conversations. But we like it. We like learning about the tools that we use, and that's what we're going to do. So with that, let's get started. By the way, if you are watching on Zoom, don't use the chat tool here. I mean, you're more than welcome to use it, but we don't really follow it. We don't read it. There are links in there to the Mukana chat tool, which is what we use externally. So anyway, the first question, Eric Hall says, when leveraging a Zoom room to bump up resolution in a Zoom meeting, and this is tricky because some of these words are proper nouns, how significant is the impact on participant bandwidth? First of all, Guy, can you explain short elevator ride what a Zoom room is? And that's with a capital R.
Sure. Zoom rooms are typically in a corporate office. So it's basically a large monitor with a computer, some kind of Mac or PC that's running the Zoom room software that's free. And there's usually a mic and a camera. And sometimes there's these neat bars that'll have those all integrated in one. And basically, we've been using them because we figured out that a Zoom room in its state right now will boost up a webinar or a meeting from 360p, which is what everybody's getting right now due to COVID, into 720p, which looks much nicer. So I'll put a sample in the Discord. When Jeff Keithley was on a webinar a couple weeks ago, I did it side by side before the room came in, and it's pretty drastic. I mean, it looks pretty good. But
yeah, if you
to
do the
attendees
math,
on a webinar,
if you do the
to
math,
attendees on a
it's 4 times the number of pixels. It's,
Wow.
640, 360. It's literally 4 times the number of pixels. So it does look much better. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Keep going, Guy.
Yeah, that's all right. So webinar attendees on a webinar like this are only going to still see 360p. The panelists, however, are going to see the 720p, and the recording will be 720p, and the YouTube will actually be 720p as well. So 1280 by 720 is what you get.
And if you
And that's-
haven't ever done it, you should probably, if you go into the Zoom settings, on the left-hand side is a bunch of, general audio, video, chat. One of them is statistics. And then across the top of that, there is overall audio, video, and screen sharing statistics. Click on the video and watch it. And on this meeting, again, not if you're a participant, but on your meetings that you're doing, you probably are seeing 640 by 360. But when you get somebody to join, it bumps the resolution. But the real question then, and that's all by background, how does that affect the participant bandwidth? That for a participant, it doesn't, is what you're saying.
That's correct. Yeah, you can watch it in those stats. As a room comes in, you can watch the jump, but it's dynamic and fluid. It'll only give the attendee what the demand is. So if they're allowed to get 720, it would give it to them. But panelists, since they have the 720p, if they actually make the window big enough, it'll become 720p. Otherwise, that when I say dynamic, if they have it in grid view or gallery view, they're only going to get like 320 by 240 as well. So it all depends on the pool. So Zoom's pretty smart that in the back end, it's only delivering as much bandwidth as the other user is pulling.
So here, I'll come to you in a second, Mickey. Here's another example, which you may or may not be able to see. So I'm now showing you my desktop. This is what I look at when I'm on, yeah, everybody wave. And what I've done is I've pinned Guy. I know that Guy has a quality camera. And if I look down here under the receive video settings, I'm receiving 1280 by 720. But if I take this window and scale it down, that receive drops to 640 by 360. Because Zoom is constantly and dynamically adjusting bandwidth based on what is being requested from the network. So if we all made our windows very small, Guy would actually see his send level drop. But because my window is big, his send will be 1280 by 720. Okay, Mickey, what did you want to add?
Yeah, Zoom has an article on their website called, I think it's the Group HD article, and it mentions here that for 720p for group call, the requirement is 1.5 megabits per second up and down. And for 1080p, 3 megabits per second up and down. And I've looked at the statistics as well, like when I'm doing it, and it's the figures of 1.5 and 3 megabits per second are very much so it's not exact, and also it varies. Like say if you have a second screen open up, it will take more bandwidth down.
I currently I could change views here. Sorry. I currently have a service which they say is a gig down. It's never is. It ranges from like 150 to I've seen it as high 800s, but I get pretty consistently 40 up, and I have on occasion when I'm in an HD account where I'm doing 19, you can actually do 1920, 1080 point to point. I've seen it, which the packet loss, which is one of the settings there, will get hit. And basically it's saying, we really don't have enough bandwidth to do 1080 point to point reliably. But it's the internet, so it doesn't work great all the time. Anyone else? Yeah, I think cracking, there's nobody that I know that understands HD on Zoom more than Guy. And so I've learned an enormous from him. Thanks, Guy. Next question.
I think Beiju,
Yeah, I just want to comment on that the question was about meetings, not just webinars. On meeting, all the panelists you get 720 if it's available. But as Guy mentioned, that it is dynamic. And the other thing with the 1080 is that I have seen that packet loss thing a lot with the 1080 feeds, not so much with the 720.
And your camera looks fantastic, Beiju. Paul.
Hey, Chris. So I'm getting 720p right now. Is that because of Guy, or what is it due to?
So Guy joins, yes, Guy has bestowed upon us the blessings of 720p. Thank you, Guy. And why don't you explain, while we're on the subject, Guy, why don't you explain briefly about the Facebook portal gimmick? Are we convinced that still works?
That's still, I'm testing it because I'm not sure if it's my account that's actually doing it or if it is just a Facebook portal. The Zoom room that I'm using is running on this machine behind me, and basically that when I come in with that, that's what I call it a blessing, blesses this room and brings it up this meeting to 720. If I sleep in or something, and Mickey sometimes he'll bring it in for me because he's on my account, so he's like the backup, and if I go camping or something like that, he can bring it in because it's pretty cool. When you have the account, you can say invite room, and even if Mickey's in the Philippines, he could invite the room right here. Like I don't even have to be home, and it comes into the meeting. It's pretty neat. And then Paul, yeah, I'm still not sure. We should run some tests and see what happens.
Can I show that? Is it okay if I show that window?
Yeah, let's Guy, let's run some tests. I'm available. You know, we'll run tests.
So here's the participants, and when you click on this, you get your list of participants. But there's this little caret thing. Guy had to teach me about this thing. And if you click on that, you get this invite thing, and then you get this window, and there are contacts. Oh, I'm on the wrong account. Never mind. I forgot which account I was. But if you're on the right account, one of those little tabs at the top says rooms, and then you can invite Guy's room if you're on his account. But yes, it is a blessing. You are a blessing, Guy. Victor.
Since we're talking about Zoom, are registration links only for webinars? You can't do one for a meeting, is that correct?
Here's
the way that we got into this meeting.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. Yeah. So here's what I know, that you can invite people to a meeting. You can send out an invite. And I don't think it is specific to them. I don't believe you have to register. I don't know 100%. Does anybody have any insight onto how much you can lock down a meeting? Yeah, we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay. All right, let's move forward. Jeffrey Reyes says, Alex, I think he's talking about Mr. Lindsay, you use Mimolive for live streaming, but pricing is $20 a month as a subscription. If you had to pick an alternative, what would you use? And that's Jeffrey Reyes from the Bronx. I think, who wants to answer that? If you didn't want to pay for Mimo, but wanted this similar kind of functionality. Jason, then Tony.
I think there's only one choice, and it's OBS. But I mean, again, it's not really the same thing. In my experience, it doesn't work as well on Mac. It's a joy on Windows as long as you're not gaming on top of it. And have fun with sync. We'll just leave it at that.
Explain a little bit more about the sync. I'm curious. Does it drift?
Jeff, help me out here. I haven't used it very recently. I just gave up on it and went with hardware.
Jeff? You're muted.
Jeff or me?
Jeffrey.
Okay. Well, OBS doesn't. We actually talked about this the other day. OBS doesn't use Metal, and that's the biggest problem with the OBS on a Mac right now. So that if you're doing a lot of graphic intensive stuff, OBS is gonna probably not work as well as you really want it to. As for something cheap alternative, other than that, I mean, you have CamTwist, but that doesn't stream out. And that's absolutely free. And then you can use a service like Restream, where you can do I think you can do Studio out in the free level for that, but there might be some other services out there that do the same thing.
Tony.
Okay, so as already mentioned, OBS is a alternative. What I like is Mimolive first, and then Ecamm Live. Ecamm Live is $25 a month, I believe, if you do it monthly. It's a better buy if you get it longer than if you get the year subscription. It drops it down to, I think, about $15 per month if you do it annually. Ecamm Live is pretty good, but I like Mimolive personally.
Yeah, I like it. I use it. Let's do Lauren's and then Beju.
Well, if you have an 8M mini, just stream from the mini. And
yeah, I think there's two questions here, and I don't think that we're certain what Jeffrey Reyes's question is. So Mimolive does stream, but it also composites and switches and all of that. So there's really two halves to the question, and we're not entirely certain. Maybe Jeffrey can clarify in the chat. Beju?
Yeah, just commenting on one thing, that Mimolive, yes, it's $20 for the basic. If it's cheaper, obviously, if you buy it per year or for 3 years, that if you buy it for 3 years, it's 50% off. And if you need similar functionality, specifically the virtual cam to get into Zoom, Ecamm is more expensive because you need the premium version, the top end version for that if you want the virtual camera. That's not available on the cheaper versions. Directly, OBS, obviously. Livestream Studio used to be good, but you can't buy it anymore. You have to have a Vimeo Pro account, a Vimeo streaming account to get a license to it. You can't buy it standalone. It's pretty good as well. Wirecast, again, but it's expensive. Wirecast has a basic free version, I think, which can do some of the things. I think Jeffrey might be able to. They stopped doing that anymore?
They used to have a $35 option, but then they canceled that. If you can find a license for Game Show, that might be it. And Wirecast as a whole, you're talking $20 a month. So it starts at $5.99 for the first year, and then $100 upgrades each year. So that's going to match your $20 a month eventually.
Yeah, I would actually say it's cheaper to just buy vMix, because once you really start using it for a while, it works out a lot cheaper. Because for the basic version, $60 for 4 inputs, and you can always keep buying more upgrades if you need it. So you can run it on a VM or on a PC. If you have a PC, it's probably a more stable.
Well, if they're asking about Mimolive, I'm going to assume they're probably on a Mac.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, a lot of us are on Macs, but we're using PCs for production because a lot of the softwares are on PC, which is a bit of a change, but it is there.
Yeah, Beju, is that $60 annual or lifetime, or how does that work?
$60 lifetime for the basic HD version that lets you do up to 4 HD inputs. That's lifetime. If you want to auto renew for every year, that's $60, but that's for any edition, that you can basically get free upgrades. Otherwise, you can keep using the last version you had. You can, anytime you want to upgrade to the next level up, which is Pro HD, that's $350. You basically just pay the add-on charges. You don't have to buy the whole new thing again, which is really nice.
What a great deal that is.
And there's an SD version for free on vMix.
Tony?
I just wanted to add that with Ecamm and with Mimolive, both of them offer trials, and so I would suggest playing around with both of them, and then decide which is the best alternative for you. Take advantage of the trials.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that the $20 a month subscription for Mimo doesn't support, I'm going to say support, commercial use. If you're using it professionally, they ask that you pay more. And frankly, if you're using it professionally, it's probably not the added cost is not that big of a deal. Let's move on. Next question from Rick Combs from Columbia, Tennessee says, I noticed that the $14 Pyle microphone from Amazon is no longer available. That's probably our fault. Looks like we wiped them out. Is there an alternative in the same price range that you all would recommend? What's the new one that we're trying to put out of business, Tony?
The Polson.
The Polson?
Yeah, the Polson. I've gotten one, but I haven't had the chance to try it out yet.
What?
So I'm gonna come on with.
You are not a true office hours participant, Tony. That package comes. You have exactly 30 minutes to get it out of the package and plugged in.
It's open.
We're gonna
It's
ask
open.
you.
I
We're gonna
just haven't
ask you to
plugged it
leave
in.
until you've plugged it. No, I'm kidding. Jeff Francis, you had your hand up.
Okay. Sorry, finding that mute button. I also was going to say the Polson, and I honestly can't remember if I'm talking on the Pyle or the Polson right now. Yes. I did pull it out of the package and plug it in.
Stuart, then Jason.
It's not the alternative you are looking for, but probably the alternative you want, and that is to change your Amazon website to be the Australian one. Still in stock here, guys.
Yeah, but will they ship it to California?
16 weeks shipping.
I think
they send a guy.
If somebody really wants to pay a commission, I will buy them. I will post them. The commission's going to be something.
Do you have access to any Brio cameras in Melbourne? Can you check?
I can look at the Amazon site.
Mickey.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Stuart's our new.
We've seen this happen, by the way. Talk to your friends overseas. They might be able to buy something for you. Let's go, Jason, then Jeffrey.
How's Brio spelt, by the way? Is it
BRIO?
Camera.
I love that. I love that we're like starting our own import-export business here. Yes, mind your tariffs, folks.
No licenses.
I think Stuart, you should do a total buyout. Just buy out all their stock and then start a drop shipping service.
So I used to Paulson last.
Unfortunately, I maxed out my budget. I'm buying a Kona 4 from a lovely gentleman called Jim Weingard at BKW in Phoenix. So I need to build up the funds again first.
Jeffrey.
Jason wasn't done yet.
Okay, go Jason. Sorry.
So I used a Paulson last week in production. I bought two of them. One is just the straight up quarter-inch version, the quarter-inch TS plug. And then the second one was the one that was designed for a Sennheiser Lav pack, and it worked absolutely beautifully. The way that it loads the transformer was completely perfect.
$14, right? It's amazing. And then Jeffrey.
Okay, so what I use is a company called Micronic. They're based out of the UK, but if you're going to want to get it in the US, you have to go over to Whoops, I got the wrong screen up. Okay, you have to get it over at eBay. I have a link set up here I was going to show you, but basically it's an interchangeable plug, so you can get the T4F, you can get the Sony version, or you can get the Sennheiser version. And the Sennheiser version doesn't work on the Sony, and the Sony version doesn't work on the Sennheiser. Plus, they have a couple other options. Of course, if you get the T4 F1, you have to get the adapter for it as well.
Okay. Stuart.
Not the Brio, but the 920 or the C920 is a week's delivery.
Okay.
Yeah, Kyle Hammond posted in the chat that the Best Buy has the 920s, 922s, not the Brio, but they're pretty close. Look at the differences if you're interested.
Kyle also says that the Brios are available on Best Buy.
No,
All
that's
right,
what I just checked that link. That actually takes you to the 922.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, never trust a Best Buy link. Can we just like say that straight away? Available today. Never mind.
Rick Combs says, Wirecast crashed on me yesterday while live streaming our church service. Sorry about that, Rick. It has never done this before. Thankfully, it came back up fairly quickly, but what is the group's thoughts on using OBS in place of Wirecast? I have not used OBS for live streaming before, only for ISO recording. So I think we kind of covered a lot of that. Jeffrey?
The biggest thing with OBS over Wirecast is OBS does a single stream. So if you're only streaming to one service, then you're fine on that aspect. Yeah, I use OBS in conjunction with Wirecast and vMix for that matter, because it's a great. You can put it onto a secondary machine. You can add like 2 or 3 cameras, or you can even just send video signal out of your Wirecast and send it into the OBS. And then dual stream from there. So it's a good backup.
Rick, Sky, go ahead.
Yes. Again, I'm just only going from experience of this exact same challenge. Several months ago, when we were all still learning, I was still learning what was going on. I think OBS did blink out on me. We have transferred over to vMix and not had at least that issue. But we also found out that our internet provider was choking us, and then consequently killed the signal. But that was at the Comcast level. we were sending good signal, but then it choked. So yes, and keep trying, and just start 15 minutes earlier and you'll get ahead of the Baptists.
So there's a bit of advice I would give. There's a gentleman, it's a YouTube channel, and I want to say the guy's last name starts with a G. Maybe somebody knows what it is, but he covers church tech extensively, music stuff, mixing audio, and he
has a Discord concept as well, and he's very robust and very helpful.
I want to say it's like Gosling, and I know there's an actor named Gosling. So anyway, but he does a great job, and he has done behind the scenes walkthroughs of various large church streaming organizations. Like he covers Elevation Church, which is in I believe North Carolina. He's done Bethany, which is in Northern California, and he gets it really in depth. So I always when I'm trying to learn something new, I always like to kind of like start at the top and then back down to when I find my budget level. Stuart, then Sky again.
Sky, if your ISP is shaping things, you can try encrypting the video signal, or you can try going through a VPN, and that will hide what is being sent from the ISP. So they won't shape it based on the type of data that's going through.
Interesting. No, I think it just got crowded one day on 164th Street. I don't know.
Yeah.
But since I've got the mic, I'll go ahead and scream out Caleb Windeman is who I think you were at least that's a guy that I have started. And on Discord, he has a thing called BLK bar. So look that up. So no, Black Bar on Discord. And it's deep resources specifically for churches, and kind of humorous in a fun way.
Chris, I think the YouTube account you were looking for is Churchfront TV. They're really good about that, and they have a really good list of equipment as well recommended.
I just found it. Yes, it's Churchfront.
Yeah, they're pretty good about it, and it's a really nice way for resource because they're looking at a lot of different levels. So you have the very basic setups and you have the more complex setups.
Yeah,
it is pretty good. It is pretty good.
Yeah, and he does a really good job of speaking to somebody not specifically in our industry. I think his mission is to elevate people's understanding. Jeffrey?
Trying to find, for some reason I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he is based down in Texas. He used to work with Luria when they were with Geekbeat TV, and he does David Foster, yeah, that's it. And he's done they do a live church YouTube thing every single week. And no, it's not David Foster. That's Luria's partner. He's still in Texas. He broke free after, he couldn't go to Oregon with them. So I still think he works with them, but the name's just escaping me. I can't, I'm getting old.
Right in front of us now. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, I think there's, bottom line, plenty of resources, and especially when it comes to the church stuff, there's a lot of people out there trying to help. Our own Victor. And here comes the question. We talked about this a lot in the first hour. I got kicked off Facebook, so I'm going to move to Zoom. So why'd you get kicked off, Victor?
They were threatening that in October they were going to get a little more righteous about copyright violations, and I suspect that's why I haven't received any feedback in the middle of my stream. They just cut it off, and then people that were already in could finish watching it, but nobody else could even see the post anymore. So I'm assuming that's the reason.
To be clear, once a week or so, you do your sax jams. Once every 2 weeks.
Once every 2 weeks. No, once every 2 weeks. Sorry.
All right. I always get confused on what bi-weekly means. Does that mean twice a week or once every other week? Anyway,
every other Sunday. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so every other Sunday, you do your sax jams. You use like karaoke backing tracks, and you play on top of them. Right.
That's right.
So technically, that's kind of what's going on. So we don't know if they're hearing your perfectly reproduced melodies on top, or if they're hearing the karaoke track. But at any rate, Facebook is yanking your feed.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Either way, I've made a decision to move it here to Zoom and in this format so that I can actually have a more interactive show, because those who register and can come in, I'll actually be able to talk to them between songs, not just talk at them.
And as we know quite well in this forum from the earliest days of office hours, the problem with having an open call is you don't know who's gonna follow that link. And that's what we were touching on earlier about what kind of security measures are there to limit. You want a balance between, I want to limit who I let in, but I want a big audience too.
Yeah, well, I don't care about the big audience. I didn't have that big of an audience live anyways, but I did find how to do registrations and meetings. It is possible.
Just in the last half hour?
Just in the last half hour, yeah.
Oh, awesome. So tell us what you learned.
So what I learned was that you basically just have to go and set up a meeting, and then there is a little tick box that says require registration. And then you follow the yellow brick road as far as all of the different settings. You can format your email. You can put a banner on it. And then they give you a registration link, much like we got when we first all came here. And that's what I'll be sharing with my friends only on Facebook. And I'll probably have them DM me and give it to them. And then people can register, and then I'll be able to monitor who registers.
You know, if you really wanted to be super cautious and you could solicit some help, you could actually do your music in a breakout room and have when you first enter the meeting, consider that to be like the lobby. And then you have a trusted friend to say, oh yeah, I'm going to push you into the breakout room. And I think you can do that one at a time.
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking of doing, and again, trust me here, guys, we're talking about probably less than 25 people that would actually be watching,
So
live.
far, it
But
could grow.
yeah, it could grow.
You never
But
know where it's
I
gonna
am
go.
going to look for a moderator for sure, someone that can be, bumping people off and stuff, because I will definitely not have time to be doing that stuff. And then the other advantage is, if I want to go further, I can have a Mickey type TD person that can also be, doing some switching and stuff like that. So
we are just outraged that a faceless algorithm at YouTube is messing with your music, Victor, and we're all behind you 100%. We want you to be able to play
That's
your
right. Fair use.
tail off.
Yeah, I just put a disclaimer. And part of the process for this registration is that you can have a banner basically when people first walk in the room that say, hey, the music you're about to hear is for entertainment purposes only. No money is being made at any time. So.
Right. I had an occasion a week or two ago where we needed to really master everything that we could do for breakout rooms. And what I ended up doing, maybe I shouldn't be saying this completely publicly, but I contacted Felipe and I said, hey, I need you to spend the next 72 hours learning everything that can be learned about Zoom breakout rooms. And he says, well, why? And I said, because I'm inviting you to a meeting and I'm going to introduce you as Felipe, who knows everything about breakout rooms. And he crammed and he learned every little nuance of what you can and can't do. And because we were doing this event that absolutely depended on being a master of breakout rooms, and it went well. It went super well. Anyway, so the point of that comment is there's a ton of stuff behind the scenes in Zoom. The web stuff is so complicated. Mickey?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, as far as I know, enabling registration for meetings has to be done on the web interface of the Zoom settings, not within the actual Zoom app.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was alluding to. There's a ton of things.
Yeah, that's where I did it. Very good point. Thank you, Mickey.
All right. Our own Paul Wallace, moving on, says, can anyone drill deeper into Discord? Who developed it? Where is it going? Pros and cons.
Jeffrey,
Bill.
didn't it come out of the gaming world? Wouldn't you know more about that? I mean, Discord was the place where all the serious gamers started gathering to talk about World of Warcraft and stuff like that, and do live streaming of that sort of stuff. That's what I remember.
Mostly, I'm asking for a friend. She wants to start something like what Alex is doing here, and she has reservations about will Discord sell your information? And I just wanted to drill, somebody maybe here knows more about it, can drill deeper into the motivations and the intent of the people who created it. Maybe if it's gaming, that would lend itself to more commercialization. Does anybody here know a lot about Discord and how the origins
Jeffrey?
and so on?
Yeah, all I know is it was Jason Citron that founded it. He had another gaming chat system that he was working on, and I think that he lost or they had to close. I'm not sure on that part, but he decided to start this up, and it was meant for gamers. It was meant to be non-serious, and then it got serious. And so, as for the selling of any type of information, I think a lot of the Discords, they're besides the basic information that you feed into the beast, it's not really going to collect too much from you, but it's not a secure service. It's not a Slack or anything like that.
Jason?
Yeah, along those lines, it is absolutely not a secure service. The other thing is it kind of buries its way into Chrome. So if you're using Chrome, understand the way that the data monitoring works now is it's not one evil person. What it is a whole bunch of tiny little aggregators that actually are selling your information. So if your goal is to say, oh, we're not, they don't sell your information, every single unique situation, that would be a true statement. But in aggregate, forget about it. Like if you're not paying for it, you're the service. Discord is 5 years old. It was designed by, by some Jason guy who wasn't me, who was using Ventrilo and Team Talk, and he didn't like the fact that you had to type in IP addresses in order to use current VoIP multi-chat, push-to-talk type solutions for team gaming. I don't think the origin is going to tell you what you want to know. The origin doesn't really matter because, as we've seen with office hours, it's become a whole lot more than it was. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those of us have been around for a while. We'll remember things like Bill Davis. Do you remember 2Pop?
Oh gosh, yes, I remember 2Pop. That was my lifesaver in the earliest days of Final Cut.
And then 2Pop became Creative Cow.
Well, kind of. I'm not sure that's really two because Ron did Creative Cow kind of separate from 2Pop. Larry Jordan, not the Larry Jordan who you guys might know from training, but there's another Larry Jordan who was an editor who worked with the Scottish director, and I can't remember his name. But anyway, all this stuff was kind of roiling around the internets in the early days of video editing, even with DV back in those days, and these things all grew up out of that.
So Jason and Jeffrey, quick follow-up. If you were starting like something like Alex is doing, like we're doing here from scratch, would you use Discord or what would you use?
I don't understand. Do you mean office hours or do you mean the discussions we have in Discord?
Well, I mean like office hours. If you were starting an office hours with a Zoom meeting every day and you wanted to have a discussion forum, would you go right to Discord or would you use something else? And this is
depends really. What's nice about Discord is that it scales and it's free straight away. So that's the real benefit.
Here's what I would say, Paul. If you're concerned about security, stay off the internet. If you're willing to open yourself up to a reasonable amount of exposure, then welcome to the internet, Al Gore. And so, I mean, that's the way I would look at it. If they're truly concerned, tell them to use, Pony Express couriers. I mean, stay off the internet. That's what I would say. I think Alex talks about this. Is like, there's a certain amount of exposure that you have to have. If you really want to be secure, be boring. Don't talk about anything that is, potentially going to be used for, some international political intrigue and blackmail. Be boring. Jeffrey, then Sky, then Stuart.
Okay, so the big thing is it really depends on if you're getting an organic audience or you have an audience already. I'll give you a quick story. When Google Forums disappeared, I had the largest podcast forum on all of the web, and that went down within months, and it was really disappointing. But the one thing that I did do was I started collecting information. I said, hey, if we move this podcasting forum to another place, where would you want to see it? Do you want to see it on Facebook? Do you want to see it on Twitter? I think this was pre-Discord, so I asked if they wanted to see it on Slack, and I got a whole bunch of information where people want to congregate around. And I heard a lot of things about why they don't want to be on Facebook, why they don't want to be on Slack. I have my personal reasons why I don't want to be on Slack, that's for sure. So if you can poll your audience and ask them, where do they want to go? That's where you're going to start. And if you need something more secure, then they're just going to have to bite the bullet and go to a service that you can deem secure. But there's really too many unknown variables at this point to really definitely say it's going to be one or the other.
Well, now you got to tell us though, Jeffrey. Where did you guys land?
I started it on Facebook, and nobody came over, and it pretty much died out.
So
I was sitting there waiting on MySpace, Jeffrey. I was waiting right there on MySpace.
You were on, yeah. I actually checked my MySpace the other day.
Let's go to Sky and then Stuart.
So Paul, connection and communication. How do you want to do it? Because broadcast is not free. We pay by the time of those commercials. It is not free. And to Chris's point, we are Google's product because they sell our looking at things. So that's why the comment of eyeballs, if there's a marketing concept, if there's a commercial possibility, then yes, it will, it has to be paid for. There's no such thing as a free horse. So my rant is, on that other camera, I kept wanting to push your button. I pushed it several times and I didn't get a photo. So the third thing was, as Bill is talking about the origin of this and the origin of that, I was really excited about hearing what story was in a tribal situation. You would sit around and everybody would nuance it, but then one person would be the story or the keeper of the tribe's story because they were more gregarious or they had a twinkle in their eye or something, but it would be kept in check by the group. And that's what I see that we're doing. We are shaping our own story right here and refining it down to the truth. But as we've seen, there's little gray areas in the truth of that telescope looking back at history. So I just thought that was an interesting observation.
To answer your question, it's not. To answer your question, Sky, it's not for me. It's for a friend.
I get it. It's
for River.
Oh yeah, I know. We're still. I want to too. I'm pushing that button.
You should go find a copy of Joseph Campbell's *The Power of Myth* and read through that first. That's a great place to start.
I don't see anywhere to respond to the button.
Okay, calm down, everybody, please. Let's go to Stuart.
I have a 3-part answer. Firstly, you guys were late to the internet with that list that you came out with, Chris. Try Internet Relay Chat as the first social media. You guys are so late to the internet. The 80s were lovely, by the way. There were no regular people, only us geeks. For Paul Wallace, the second part of my answer, I mispronounced the name there. Perhaps it might be time we ask Alex when we can hire Mukana for question and answers for other events. And the third part was for security. I can guarantee we will be on search engines and by using the key phrases, let's see, Barrett M80A2, political change, and CIA.
Climate change.
No, political change.
Look up
Barrett M80A2, you'll understand.
Let's remove the political. Let's remove the political. All right, let's move on. Yeah, security. Speaking of Sky, So do I want a ruthless review of my StreamYard one-man band event link? Madeline Smithberg cooking with Mitki Live. We went last Saturday night on YouTube and Facebook. Huge thank you to Minnie on this panel to get us this far. I learned a ton on our soft launch. I don't know what the question is, Guy. Can you please elaborate?
Ruthless review.
Oh, and Guy's putting it up. It's pin Guy. It's spotlight Guy. What do we got?
Okay, this is using StreamYard, and there's Bruce, who bravely jumped in as a guest chef, but he was the one that helped me physically find the right secret buttons on many of the StreamYard nuances and Facebooks, and there we go. We went live and we had music, and we rolled, and then I'm pushing buttons on StreamYard as if I knew what I was doing, and they had iPhones and no feedback in their room, but we had two kitchens, one in Denver, this one's in Bellevue, Redmond, Washington, that one's in Chicago, and we were just saying hi, and we did a 58 minute, all three had the same ingredients, and this woman is a fascinating woman from Denver that is a former
what do they use to mount their iPhones?
Fortunately not the husband. We started with the husband and it was all over and then we did have a third camera who was the husband in Redmond. There we go. That's the live camera. I mean, they were all live, but I was physically switching 5 different sources remotely. And so I had 2 mounted that I was switching. And then the husband had the live roaming cam. And then this is Carolyn in Denver. And she is a stand-up comedian. There's Madeline in her chef coat, and she's leading the pack. And like Victor, it was announced, yeah, we're going to be doing this weekly. So it's a different meal, different cooks, different chefs. We're going to have Michael Fucci from Los Angeles join us on Tiny Kitchen Big Taste. And we learned all about feedback and
how were they hearing themselves? Were they just have live speakers in the room?
Painfully. I had a laptop that was feeding back that I should have.
Were you at the location with Madeline?
I am just over the shoulder. Yeah, Guy can go to the end of the show. And so Madeline, coming from TV, of course, she wanted no dead air. And so it was just, oh, that was good. The wine was so good. There I am. That's me, 6 feet away without a mask. I'm sorry, got caught. But I am live streaming on my Facebook page, the live stream of the YouTube of the Facebook of it was kind of meta.
Huh. I think it's a neat idea. Yeah, I was able to catch a little bit of the Madeline interview. She seemed quite interesting.
Oh, at least. And we've got Graham coming on Thursday, by the way.
On the cooking show?
No, he's going to be talking about the history of TV.
Oh, on office hours.
On office hours, yeah. He's coming this Thursday. Oh, good. Yeah, Guy. Yeah. Well, I'll drive right past you, Guy. I'm coming up. I'm going up to Warm Beach Wednesday night and setting everything up for Thursday morning. So.
All right.
Thank you. Well, now that's the behind the scenes director's document, but now ruthless review. Do I want it?
I think it's a neat idea. I didn't see enough everything was illuminated. I didn't hear any of it, so I can't talk about that. I think it's a great idea. So it's different people in different locations cooking the same meal and talking about, are they talking about other stuff while they're doing it?
Oh, we got the history of Madeline's marriage and first and second. We got her children. We got the point of a pasta in Italian, which is where she learned how to cook it. We got.
May I give a timely suggestion? Before November 3rd, have a Republican and a Democrat cooking the same dish.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
And let
there
them
you go.
argue politics while they're
Well,
cooking.
No politics.
Here's the
I'm not saying
punchline
for
of
this
that.
show. I'm saying for your show.
The punchline of that, Chris, is we're going to be on the Today Show on November 3rd. Madeline's going to be on. She's going live on the Today Show.
Well, there you go. So you should definitely do the politics version before that day.
I think we'd lose. No, I think I'm taking the office hours approach.
You'd only lose 59% of your audience.
Yeah, no, don't. We had 67 live views, but Jeffrey Powers has got.
Yeah, Jeffrey, what's your
solution.
question?
He
My
helps so
arm
much.
has been
Thank you,
up
Jeffrey.
for so long. No, I actually watched this, and it was a great job. Of course, the one thing that I noticed was everything was at a Batman angle. So you might want to work on your framing on the shots a little bit better and get yourself a stabilizer. But the biggest question actually came from the chats. Why are you using olive oil instead of butter?
Now
My
there's a
favorite
question.
was-
for serious
My
import.
favorite kept being the text was, "Who's Bruce?"
I'm telling you, do the politics version. I think that'd be
Oh
fascinating.
no, we can't. I just
You
she
could.
would go there in a heartbeat. She has
You
such an opinion. MSN is on the back on the 24/7. No, please, dear God.
I just think it'd be. I'd watch that. I'm always up for a good political fight. I think that's always fun.
No.
Moving
that's a
forward,
different
Paul Wallace from Austin, Texas says, "Can we discuss clothing for tech?" I don't know. Can we? Vests, pants, t-shirts, etc. What works best for tech and going
1,000
online?
black t-shirts. Have black t-shirts. You want, if you're going to be anywhere where a reflective surface can show the crew or people, you want to hide as much as possible.
As it turns out, the emo kids are really good at working on tech crews. Jason.
Exactly.
Scotty Vest is known the world over as the
That is
very
true.
best tech clothing. It's very expensive, but it is extremely well made. And it has little wire things to hide all your wires, and it can offset the balance of, I've got my cell phone here and my
You
headphones
sound like
there.
a Leo
and
Laporte show, Jason.
That's ridiculous. But yes, they are pretty cool.
Jeffrey Beju Stewart.
Yeah, I can double it. I can attest to Scotty Vest. Scott Jordan's a pretty interesting character for sure. The other thing is, if you're in the San Fran area, hoodies. Those are always needed because it gets cold in the San Fran area.
Who did I say next? Beju.
Yeah, second on the Scotty Vest as well. I have 3 of them in my cupboard and they are great. For the pants, I would say the Columbia travel pants are better, a bit more flexible than the Scotty Vest pants because they get really heavy really easily. But they are good. Main thing with Scotty Vest is pay attention to the sizing guide because the different models have different sizes. And if you end up with the wrong size, it can be a pain to return it.
Stuart.
The general safe rule for tech uniforms at a workplace is black slacks, a black polo shirt with a collar and the buttons done up, but no corporate logos unless it's the company you are working for. So I wouldn't walk into a TV broadcast house wearing a logo for a race team. The other thing is hiking boots can be gotten in a form that looks like a dress shoe but is comfortable to wear all day. I can recommend the Redback brand of those out of Sydney. And they will save your ankles and your feet if you're on your feet for 8 hours. High vis if you're outdoors at night. Yeah, but the logos. And change the black polo shirt to a black full-length shirt for anything in corporate.
Jason, then Paul?
Yeah, on the line of shoes, I'm a very big fan of Doc Martens. They polish wonderfully if you want to dress up, and they scuff beautifully if you just don't care, and they're waterproof, and they're warm, and they will support your ankle through the longest of trade shows that don't exist anymore.
Paul. Double mute.
Okay, Scotty Vest, $150. If you want to get the poor man's Scotty Vest, I recommend the Columbia. And they have a place here you can put your phone.
Hold
They
on,
also have a
Paul. You
pocket
asked
right
the
here.
question. You can't be giving answers to your
I can't
own
answer
question.
my own question.
No, that's not how this works. One person asks a question and then the other people answer the question. Come on.
Yes, Chris,
You
I'd
have to
like
play
to
by
ask
the
an agenda,
rules.
please.
All right. All right. He did mention Columbia, so I'll leave it at that then. But they're excellent.
Point of order. Point of order.
Product.
Then I'd like to recommend Columbia.
Rules? Okay, let's move on. I will say this, Beju, you mentioned travel pants. Are you talking about the ones where you can zip the legs off?
Those and more likely just having extra pockets, like comfortable.
Okay. Yeah,
basic,
like cargo pants.
Cargo pants, basically.
A producer friend of mine, he calls the ones that you zip the pant, where you can zip the leg off. He calls it the SUV of the pant world. Because everybody buys them thinking they're going to zip the legs off, and they never do. It's kind of like buying an SUV.
Those are terrific. Those zip off. Columbia makes those zip off ones, and then you can go swimming. They're really a fisherman's pants.
If my wife knew I was talking to people around the world about clothing suggestions right now, she would laugh and laugh and laugh.
I just know I would lose the bottom half of one leg somewhere.
Lawrence says,
can we just add that if you've got the standard tech uniform with a high vest and a clipboard, you can get anywhere.
Anywhere.
No
Anywhere in the
security
world.
will stop you.
Or a small...
Walk through the loading dock into any
Pelican
hotel.
case.
And go straight to any place and get a cup of coffee on the way for free.
Moving forward, Lauren says, does anyone have experience with the Tascam Series 102i USB audio interface? Is it worth considering? Better than the Scarletts? Stuart, then Brian. Bunch of mutes, Stuart. Bunch of mutes.
Bunch of mutes? My sync was perfect. I can guarantee my sync was perfect. Does Lawrence just want it for the audio interface side of things or the recording things? Because remember, the Mix Pre 3 and the like are recorders. That
Is this
also
just me
do
or is
USB.
that everybody else seeing the product? Because I've got a black screen. There it is.
On Jeffrey's one?
Maybe
yeah.
just a refresh.
Price-wise, the Tascam is about 1/3 of the price of the Mix Pre 3. I don't have a price for the Scarletts. But I've had Tascam recorders in the past, and they've always sounded beautiful for.
Yeah, I think this is just an interface, not a recorder. Brian, then Jeff Francis.
I just need to know if Lawrence is on B&H this morning. That's all.
Yes, I am.
Why? What's the
Because they're on
joke?
sale.
That
model's
it's
on
50%.
sale.
It's 50%. Yeah, and I was looking for a replacement for my Zoom H6. I'm wondering if it's better than that. I'm not ready for a Mix Pre just yet. I was just wondering if it was worth the.
Has anybody seen the Zoom? I think it's called the Zoom 8 or something. It looks like a spider, with all the. It's the dumbest design ever. Jeff Francis, then Bill, then Jeffrey.
I haven't used the Tascam, but looking at it quickly, it looks like it requires a power supply. So it cannot be USB powered, which may matter to you, may not. Also, it does have the ability to bring in 8 additional inputs digitally via ADAT light pipe. So if you ever need that capability, it can expand to 10 inputs, and it has some effects built into it. So it's definitely got more capability than the Scarlett, but it may be more than you're looking for.
Jeffrey, Jason, Paul.
I was going to say the exact same thing Jeff does. It's a 10.2i, which allows for 10 inputs. There's also a 208i, I think it is, that allows for 20 inputs. I have an older model of this, and I did an interview at NAMM when they first came out. It was pretty impressive on how it looks, it sounds. The only problem I always have with Tascam is their software. They end up putting on some software that's like super small, and you got to kind of really get into the faders, just trying to get them up and down. But other than that, I've used it in a few of my Tascam in a few different streams. It's a great little device.
Jason?
I've used many Tascams over the years. I think the preamps sound beautiful. My advice there is forget about it if you're not. As a rule, you shouldn't be using DC input because it's just begging for extra noise. That's my only advice. Oh, and don't load the software. Like, don't use them for effects. But what they are is a nice clean input or a nice clean output. I learned the hard way in my mixing days that you shouldn't output more than 2 channels because then they get weird.
Paul, then Bill.
Yeah, I Googled this and I found that there's a really excellent site called Geekazine, and they do a review of this. And
Never heard of it.
And it's really, really a great
Who's that weird
review
guy in the little
site.
picture?
And
why doesn't he change his top?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, what's up with that?
People should probably register to that site.
Bill?
My comment was really simply, when you see a deep discount come by with a piece of hardware like that, do pay attention to the fact that sometimes that means they're trying to clear out inventory because there's a new model and it may or may not have something that you desperately want. So just kind of pay attention to the product cycle.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I just completely avoid sale things unless it's something I know I absolutely need at that moment. Let's move. Oh, I'm sorry, Mickey.
Just from at least from my point of view, I find the Tascam to be. I mean, they've been in the business for far longer than Zoom. Zoom, the audio, the audio company, not Zoom that we're speaking on right now. Yeah, I would trust Tascam way more than Zoom, which produces the H6 that Lawrence is currently on. Yeah, I'd say in terms of.
Oh, go ahead, Mickey.
I'd say in terms of preamp quality, I would assume the Tascam is at par or better than the H6.
Yeah, I was going to say 9 times out of 10, I totally agree with Mickey, but there is one other factor. Sometimes big companies will go brand buying, and I remember for decades Marantz was one of the finest stereo brands that everybody loved. Their tube stuff was highly respected, but there was a period in I think the 90s when some big conglomerate bought them for the brand name and started putting out equipment that was nowhere near as good as the brand had a reputation for. So just pay attention to that, read through the trades and figure out, is this piece of equipment that was fabulous still as fabulous, or did somebody buy the brand and start knocking off less expensive stuff to take advantage of the branding? Just
Polaroid and Kodak.
Amen.
Stuart.
Amen.
And then we'll move on.
If I recall correctly, Tascam is owned by TIAC and TIAC is owned by Yamaha.
Jeffrey?
But that might not be correct.
Actually, I was going to say, Tascam was owned by Gibson. And then when Gibson went through its bankruptcy, they sold off Tascam and TX. So I'm not sure who owns it right now, but they just might be struggling right now.
Doesn't Harman own everything now?
Let's move forward. John Wigglesworth from Singapore says, has anyone had a chance to take the new Shoflo Studio for a spin yet? So I believe, who can tell me what Shoflo is? Shoflo Studio. Anyone? Is it one of these, like, what am I trying to say? I believe it's an application where you can organize your show. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So these are the events in your show. Everybody can follow along, have a clear view of where we are in the show, what's coming up next. Yeah, I can't even verbalize what I thought it was. So I'm going to say nobody here has used it. I will say that for at least 20 years, I wanted to write a piece of software that did this, so it's encouraging to know that stuff like that exists. Beju?
So it's a run a show website, web app. Is it a web app or is it a direct app? Is it a run on your machine? Does anybody know?
It looks like a web app based on the fact that it's
Beju had his hand up.
showing through in a browser.
Showflow originally, I believe, started as a run of show web app based. It I think has an app or a browser based app, which is still pretty popular. It's expensive for what it is. I think I haven't really used
Is
it.
it a subscription or can you buy it?
I think you can buy it per event or you can buy it per year. They have both options. It depends on
annual licenses start at $150 a month.
Yeah,
and they don't have a full pricing system on there.
Jason?
They don't share it basically.
I'd say Monday.com if you want something like a labor disbursement or like a project workflow diagram. It's iOS compatible, it's web compatible, and it looks like, and again, don't quote me, but it looks like it can do most, if not all, of what this one does.
I don't know. I think this is much more specific to, timed events. Like this is a 2-minute and 17-second roll in, and that means
Yeah,
at
the
this
scale
time
is
of
definitely
day
for
this will
production.
happen.
Yeah.
Beju?
Yeah, just let me continue on that. Shoflo started with that. Shoflo Studio is something they got in beta right now, which looks like StreamYard on steroids. Basically, they're trying to do what StreamYard is doing, but giving a more official production workflow that you can have a TD in there, you can have a playback operator in there, and operating system. I just looked at it right now. It looks interesting, but I haven't really tried it out yet. So it looks like something that might be more interesting for some of us here, actually. But again, lack of pricing or lack of details is a bit of an issue.
So it's a large show management tool for kind of big events.
It's
on the web.
Yeah, I don't even know that I would be comfortable calling it show management, because to me, show management is everything up until you fade up from black and start the show. This is really running the 2-hour or the 90-minute or the 60-minute show, and it allows you to put all the cues in for every department. I'm assuming everybody gets their own view. They can see what's going on. Yeah. So I think the short answer, John, is none of us have taken this for a spin yet. Moving on from Jeff Widgren from Overland Park, Kansas, I believe. Victor, did you know that Zoom just announced their new OnZoom platform? Perhaps you could use that for doing
Chris, I'm going to interrupt. Victor has just had to leave the panel.
Oh,
yeah, he just
I'm sorry.
said a gotta run folks post.
Yeah, just before we get to the question.
All right. Well, who wants to talk? Can anybody describe what OnZoom is? And then we'll move on. This is specifically for Victor, but
I can briefly. I'm learning about it as we speak. It is in my mind, what it is a virtual mall. It's a platform of opportunity that Zoom is now making available for content creators, and both for profit, not profit. So it's a big, giant broadcast network mall. That's my ignorant 1-minute description.
Yeah, the fact that there's the potential of a paywall is interesting. It would be like when YouTube started channels,
But I think the big difference that I'm kind of excited about it, and I'm going to be jumping on it immediately, because unlike all of the other platforms that started and then tried to figure it out, everybody speaks Zoom around the world now, and that's the unique difference with this.
Just monitoring the chat, Blair Anderson said OnZoom was like Twitch, but with class.
Okay.
And Paul would probably not like it because I'm sure it's being monitored and information's being scraped.
I can guarantee if it's
I would love it. I think I like it already.
All right.
But it looks like a thing, and I'm jumping on it.
All right, let's move forward. Dan Huber from Erie says, in Zoom breakouts, did you ever use pre-assigning breakout rooms? We tried it recently and it didn't work. I could tell you a few things that I know vaguely from experience, meaning I was there, but I wasn't running it. The best way to pre-assign is if you have a list of everybody who's logged into the meeting and you know their Zoom login, because you can essentially create, I'm going to call it a script. It's probably not a script. A menu. It's not a menu, whatever. You can create a bunch of presets that are going to start your breakouts based on a list that you've pre-built. If you don't have that, you can randomly set, or you can manually push people into breakouts. But what I do know is if you've preset a bunch of breakout rooms and attendees to specific breakout rooms, and if for any reason you start another breakout room session for anything, everything that you preset will get lost. But the best way is if you actually have a list of all the people and their Zoom logins. That was something that Jason.
Yeah, I'd say that's a really good way to put it. I would call them boilerplates, or basically templates, just, columns where you sort people. And in my experience, the best way to do it is first have somebody who's ready to help people. Think about a trade show where they have people with these big flags that say, "Ask me." And then the second part is also have somebody who's willing to have a spreadsheet and help people find the right thing. That's my best advice.
Yeah, but there is a way
guys.
that you can pre-build. All right. We'll see you next time, Jason. Thanks. I do know that there is a way that you can, oh, look at that. He faded out. And then, is he going to disconnect? And he's gone. How classy. There is a way that you can preset a list even before the meeting starts. So if you know that these are the 100 people that are coming to your thing, and you know that you want 4 breakout rooms with 25 each, and you know that you want these people to talk about this thing and these people to talk about this thing and whatnot, you can have that all preset before you even start the meeting, if you know everybody is going to be there and you have their Zoom logins. So Dan, your comment, we tried it recently and it didn't work. I do know that if you 101 John Preto, I do know that if you manually start a breakout room before you run that preset, you will break the preset. So maybe you ran into something like that. Moving forward, Victor, Victor had another question, also gone. Oh, we talked about this a little bit. We'll skip over that. He wanted to know some external 1U, 1 rack unit reverb units under 1,000. Jeff, what did you say earlier? You had like 3 or 4. Mickey might have a couple too.
Yeah, I was talking about old Lexicon PCM 80 and Yamaha SBX 90, SBX 990, those kind of things. Used market.
Mickey, what's your favorite reverb?
Altiverb digital, not hardware. Putting me on the spot there, Fenwick. But yeah, I would say the same thing, like secondhand Lexicon units.
I put you on the spot, but you did well. You can handle it. Tony,
hey, it's not as bad as me. I was so tired this morning we got here that I recommended a compressor.
So I just want to say, Tony, since the beginning of the meeting to now, the color of your image looks much better. Did you change something? Or is it just different light through the window?
What's funny is I have a light shining on my face, and I started it at the beginning. And the reason why I asked the question in the chat was, as the sun is coming in, I'm of course looking a whole lot better.
So here's the thing: if you have the ability to have a different light that possibly like color balances, the incandescent light doesn't work as well with your skin tone and that camera as the daylight. So when the sunlight comes through, I just happen to notice even in the thumbnails, like, wow, Tony looks much better. Anyway, don't mean to embarrass you or anything. But it looks great. Next question from Gabriel from Malaysia. He says, is it ethical for AV vendors? Oh boy, this is going to be interesting. Is it ethical for AV vendors you engage to run your event, to take videos and photos of the event to promote their own services? Interesting. Recently, I had a vendor that played a small role, but made it sound that the event depended on him on his website. Oh boy, here we go. I could talk about this for hours. Stuart.
I'm going to talk about this from a point of view where the event is a film shoot. Generally, it's up to whoever's running the event to decide whether or not people are allowed to use their phones or cameras to take behind the scenes, and also to control the media that is released about that event, because you might have a program of promotions and things you want to keep hidden until a project premieres and all that sort of stuff. And you'll have a coordinated flow of media that you release on a schedule. I have been cinematographer on a film where one of the extras took photos and posted it on his own stuff while we were shooting and made it out like he was one of the stars and he was one of the directors. And yeah, it's basically bad form and bad behavior.
Very much so.
But
and it could be
whether
dictated.
they're allowed to do it should be on the contract when you hire the subcontractor.
Bill.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. This has to do with set etiquette. And I'd say 99.9% of the time, the answer is you should never grab anything having to do with a job you work for somebody else. In other words, it's not your gig. And then promote that as if you did something. Now, the one way, if you talk to whoever hired you, and there is a clear line of communication, like that's the primary client, you can ask permission. And once you get permission, then yes, you can use that work on your website. But I'd be really strict about getting permission for anything that you didn't create from the ground up. And I mean, wrote the script, did the music, and everything else, because there will be all sorts of other potential copyright embedded things in there, and it's just a rat's nest. So that's the only clear way to do it.
Mickey?
Yeah, similar to like, I guess like our etiquette, like on set and also on location, wherein, you know, show blacks. We don't want to be seen. You want to be very like, you know, behind the scenes. You don't want to call attention that you're working on a certain thing unless the person or the entity that hired you actually promotes that you worked on it. Then I think like then it's fine to, you know, do the same thing in reverse.
I will tell you, I have a very good friend, excuse me, who was running, he was A1 in the TV truck doing an event for a very well-known South Bay fruit company. And he pulled his phone out to take a photograph of the patch bay inside the truck because he needed to document what was and was not patched. And that was the last day he ever worked for the fruit company. He took one photo and was fired forever. So you have to understand that some people are very protective of that stuff, and it's just lame. So yeah, if that person is, to me, that's like, you know what? I'm not going to hire you again. You're done. Bill?
Yeah, there's another piece of it too. Be a little careful if you put up something like, let's say you worked on a gig and you were the camera operator, and so you decide you're going to put a piece of your camera work on your promotional site, and you got permission to do that. Specify that you were the camera operator, and here's why. When people see a really nice piece of work and you're promoting that as something that you've done, somebody will hire you expecting you to work at that level. And if you don't have the chops to work at that level, you are essentially misrepresenting yourself, and you'll get there and you can't, you know, like let's say they think you lit that and you don't know lighting that well. All of a sudden you're in the position of promoting yourself as dishonest rather than, here's what I did, this was my job, I'm qualified to do that, not the rest of what you're seeing. I think that's kind of important.
Sky, then Doug.
So the word intellectual property is what we're discussing. Somebody is making an amorphic concept. If I were the person that dug the clay, if I were the artist that created this image, then I would be very specifically about a tangible thing that happened. But because we're talking with this amorphic gaseous thing called story, it's hard to understand that intellectual property has value. And that's what we're discussing, is who gets paid when to release that content. So at what point were you a part of it? And do you want, and see, because the logos that we put on, I mean, Nike, we are Nike's, they want us to wear their logos, and Starbucks and those, and Puma sitting on Bill's shirt. And so consequently, there's a time and place. Just have a conversation with and know your place about what did you do to create that intellectual property, and let other people know about it.
Doug?
Yeah, I'll take this from the producer side of things, though. In being the owner of the company, I take behind the scenes shots every single time because I want, and for several reasons too. One is to just have a document of what we do and our work, and two, just to learn from it. A lot of times, I'll put a GoPro behind an event or a production, and rewatch the GoPro and just to see what goes on in the truck. But we use our own stuff to promote ourselves because a lot of our business is word of mouth, and so
I think
from our point of view, we really do that a lot.
Yeah, but that's your production, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's totally different. This is
well.
I think what's interesting about this that Gabriel's bringing up is he had a vendor that played he says I had a vendor that played a small role but made it sound that the event depended on him on his website. So, was it intentional, or was it just over enthusiastic? That you kind of have to look at that too. Stephen, it looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, one of the things also doing corporate stuff, even with our vendors. In other words, you come in the contract, it says you're not here almost. You can't use us as a referral. And every day when people come in, they sign a piece of paper stating that. And we have lawyers locked and loaded.
Yeah. Yeah. There are certain companies, Apple, that would like you to believe that everything happened as by Oompa Loompas. You know, they just have a bunch of Oompa Loompas in infinite loop and now in the spaceship that just make things happen. They don't like talking too much about the outside vendors that they bring in. They do bring them in, but mostly it's the Oompa Loompas that make everything happen. Stuart.
They also don't like talking about the workers at Foxconn that they underpay.
Oh, snap. Okay, moving on. Charles Klein. Hey, Charles. Expanding the studio a bit and need a router to add a few more hardwired devices, at least 4 more ports, perhaps some room to expand in the future, getting 1 gig up and down fiber to the house. Okay, this could be interpreted a lot of ways. Is he talking about an IP router, an internet router, or is he talking about a video router? Charles, if you're still around, this is from 15 minutes ago. Mickey?
Yeah, I assume since he mentioned he's getting 1 gig up and down fiber to the house, I assume he's talking about
yeah,
IP.
Although I thought he was talking about a video router up until that point.
Yeah, for myself, like pretty much all the networking equipment I buy, well, hardwired networking equipment I buy now are either Ubiquiti, Netgear, or TP-Link on the lower end of things. If I have to deal with certain protocols like audio over IP protocols like Dante, or if I were to have to work with NDI, I would go with something from Cisco.
Stuart?
I'm going to suggest avoiding a brand that Mickey didn't mention, which is D-Link. They have a habit of the last firmware kind of ends up bricking different pieces of equipment. I've had this happen personally too. So, yeah, kind of avoid them. But Ubiquiti are definitely reliable and best bang for the buck. Netgear are a little... If you've got to use their user forum, it is probably the worst user forum to get help from on the planet.
Good to know. And yes, Charles did confirm it was an IP router. Doug?
Yes, I'll second Ubiquiti as well. They have a really nice interface that you can use your browser to see your network and manage it. I use it all the time.
What is the one that Alex always recommends?
The Hamachi or
the Meraki?
Abachi, I think. Pretty sure it's Abachi. Mickey.
Well, that's with soy sauce.
Mickey.
Yeah, just know like with the Ubiquiti line, if you need a lot of customability, is that even a word? Yeah,
It
if
is
you need
now.
if you need to customize your
Customization ability.
customization on if you need a lot, if you do need to do a lot of customization with your routing, I would avoid the Unify line and go with the Edge line, the Edge router line, because there's a lot more power you could do, a lot more things you can do with the Edge line.
Paul?
Whenever I go to Vancouver, my one of my in-laws, we stay there, his name is Francois, he's an IT guy, and he swears about Meraki, and he shows me all these things he does with all his IT clients. I use the Nighthawk router. I like that. And every time a Time Warner tech comes to fix something, I ask him, well, what do you recommend? What do you think would be the best router for someone? And they always say the Nighthawk brand of routers is the best. And Stuart may have an objection to that.
The Nighthawk routers are actually from Netgear, and the Telstra techs in Australia also carry the same one. The MR1100 and the MR2100 are brilliant, but Netgear's customer service on their website is not brilliant.
Jeff, then Mickey?
Just wondering whether Charles actually needs a router if he's expanding something he already has, or if he just needs a simple switch to add more ports. And that could be a lot less expensive if all I need is a simple switch.
Yeah, building a studio. Well, I mean, if he's out of, possibly. I don't know. I always buy big. You know, if I need 5 things,
I think the mention of the fiber
thing.
optic. I think the mention of the fiber optic means that he needs a router.
He does say he need. Oh, I gotcha. All right. Mickey, did you have one more thing to say?
Yeah, same thing that Jeff mentioned. Like,
Guy?
Yeah, just be careful how deep you go, because I had to rip this out this morning. This is one of the Ubiquiti switches because I had some issues with it. I have 2 of them, and you just got to know your stuff or have a friend that knows their stuff, because I bought a lot of the stuff that we have at the office because I started doing some deep NDI stuff here and broke the whole thing last night. So I woke up this morning running around pulling every last cable out to get back online because something happened in the adopting of a new switch. So adding just one thing can blow up your whole network if you don't know what you're doing. So have a friend, because I hear that the tech support on these things isn't fun to call into. So
everything affects everything.
Microsoft friend.
I have a question for Paul. Paul, can you go back to your other camera, the one that has the button at the bottom?
Oh, hold on. Yeah, let me go back to that.
Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
You're putting me on the spot big time.
I have a very specific question. Okay, the
table
over your left shoulder, is that extremely heavy? Because it looks very thick.
What over my
the table that is over your shoulder?
It's very thick. Yeah.
Is it super heavy?
Very heavy. Yeah.
Wow. Heavy. It looks. Sorry, I was very intrigued by that. Okay, then we can move on past Mr. Klein's question. Next is John Wigglesworth again. Oh, he's back to the Shoflo thing. Shoflo Studio is their StreamYard clone. And there is a website called showflow.tv/studio. So we kind of missed all of that. But still, nobody's used it. Sorry, we didn't see that earlier. Paul, once again, dominating the question and answer section. The Paul Wallace Show. Following up on the behind the scenes stuff, how do you make a great behind the scenes video about a TV show or a movie? I'll tell you as an editor, it depends. Because some things actually want to talk about technology, and some things just want to be a promotional thing. How many, I realize everybody has their hand up. Put your hands down for a second. Does anybody remember MTV used to have a show? It was called like The Making of, and it was,
Making the Video?
Making the Video, yeah. In the first half a season of that show, it was fascinating because they actually did talk about the technology, and they did some market research and realized that nobody cared about the technology except for this guy in California named Chris Fenwick. And so from then on, it was just, celebutard fluff stuff. And it got super boring really quick. So it depends if you want the behind the scenes to actually cover any technology, because sometimes it just wants to be promotional. Okay, now questions. Who had their hand up? Bill, then Sky, then Stuart.
Yeah, just understand that you're adding another layer of production on top of an already existing layer of production. So if you've got 4 camera operators on the show and then you want to cover and get an idea what they're doing, you got another 4 behind the scenes people maybe following what each of them are doing if it's a remote thing, and it just gets out of control really quickly. But you've got to pay attention to the fact that you're not making one show anymore. You're making 2 separate shows, and they are different with different purposes, so they have to be managed separately.
They're probably best off just having somebody manage the behind the scenes. Sky.
Well, The Mandalorian is doing that, and Jeff Favreau. But again, it is a intentional entertainment content creation. So they've got those 5 cameras behind the scenes didn't just accidentally show up. And this is the fallacy of reality television. It is not. Those are actors, and they are being paid. Or they're somebody that got their 15 minutes of fame and their $500 to be, abused and shot with 7 or 8 cameras. So it's a show. It's, is it interesting, or is it entertaining, or is it informational? But it needs to be intentional no matter what.
I want to interrupt. I'm going to take advantage of being a host. A couple of years ago, I was directing a live show for one of our clients, and there was this kind of annoying company that had sort of inserted themselves into the production workflow. And this kind of goes back to the behind the scenes photos that we talked about. And this company had it in their mind that they were going to shoot a great behind the scenes video about how they produced this show. And they did almost nothing. And we showed up on set, and somebody started shoving, not NDAs, but release forms in front of all the crew. And I'm like, what's this? And they said, oh, it's a release form. We're shooting a behind the scenes footage. And I said, no. And I handed it back to him. I said, you won't shoot me. I don't want to be shot. Do you understand? He's like, but everybody's doing it. Everybody but me. And that was it. And I'll tell you, every time they came into the control room, because I'm sitting there at the switcher, and frankly, it makes good behind the scenes footage, I made sure that the footage that they got over my shoulder, they even tried to get close-ups of like hands on the buttons. I was putting obscene hand gestures in every shot they tried to take because I didn't want them shooting me. I don't want to be a part of your promotion, so stop it. Anyway,
you're not going to be a great hand model, Chris.
Not that day, but I found it annoying that they tried to impose upon me, and this is like something that just happened as I showed up for a day of work. Anyway, sorry, I got super angry that day. Stuart, then Mickey.
I actually had a similar experience to that, Chris, with a music video that I directed, and there's lots of stories behind that. But I have an answer that might actually upset you. One of these, a 360-degree camera. No, a 360-degree camera mounted on top of the cinema camera, or a GoPro mounted on top of the cinema camera. Most cinematographers will do photos of the rig and behind the scenes of the projects that they're working on. The same as how Doug mentioned earlier about being the producer and having a GoPro running for records. I've also ran behind the scenes cameras, especially on things that might be of not clean show nature, to make sure that people's behavior was up to par on set, and everybody was told beforehand, this is where the behind the scenes cameras are, to make sure they would behave. Right? But yeah, it's pretty easy to set up a couple of extra cameras and let them record, especially if you are the main crew. The storytelling for behind the scenes actually comes down to the editor more than anything else.
Mickey?
Yeah, for larger projects, there's a full-on crew that's working on the behind-the-scenes packages. It's typically called an EPK crew, electronic press kit crew. It's usually, yeah, 3, 4, 5 people. There's the production has its own director, story producers that follow beats so that they can figure out like, okay, we're gonna do like this special, this piece specifically on whatever topic, you know. And yeah, it's a full-on crew, and it's a totally separate production that just shoots the set.
Yeah. I think the thing that annoyed me the most is that they were using our production to promote their business. And and they were very much a minor part of the whole thing. I was like, don't, no, you're not gonna. Okay, so Paul, are you gonna ask another question or make another comment about your question?
No, I'm going to try to say something without answering the question. Okay.
Okay.
So it's my own question, so I'll try not to answer it. But I think it'd be neat if somebody had a crew of like guys with say 4 guys with 4 great iPhones or Samsung phones, and they actually shot all the scenes in the movie, but they did like behind the scenes and the movie. So you could watch the actual movie and see the behind the scenes and compare that to the actual end product of the movie, the alternate universe version, purely made with low cost devices. What do you think that would fly, Chris?
I think you need a set of crew doing the behind the scenes. So you're shooting the people who are shooting the people who are doing. So you can talk about how to shoot a behind the scenes.
I've mentioned this before on Office Hours, but there is in 2001, the band U2 released a DVD, a standard def DVD, shot in standard def of one of their concerts, and it was the Elevation. I believe it was the Elevation tour, but it was from Boston. Okay, it's a live concert, and all the behind the scenes stuff in that on that DVD are fascinating. It's a masterclass in how to shoot a rock and roll concert by Hamish Hamilton, who is my hero. But one of the things in that is a very poorly exposed shot of the control room from the production truck. And in that, they have overlaid the line cut, which is what the vision mixer is actually cutting based on the direction that he's getting from the director and the AD. And then below that is the post-produced cut. And what's fascinating, Paul, is to see how close the line cut is to what they actually ended up going and tweaking in post. And you also get to watch the way Hamish calls a show. He relies heavily on his AD. And he, unlike in the US, where we call cameras and takes, he's telling his vision mixer, at any given time, you're free to use this subset of the images that are on the monitor wall. 5, 3, and 7 are good. 9, don't ever shoot that again. 6 is good. 8 is good. 5 is good. And so the vision mixer is cutting on the beat based on the subset of what Hamish is allowing him to cut to at any given moment. Sky and
there's a great behind the scenes we've posted a few times about the Super Bowl doing that.
Yeah,
it's Hamish
same
Hamilton
guy.
again.
Yeah, Hamish is a master. Sky,
it's incredible.
I'm just Chris, you're a fascinating human, because you at one point will encourage the underdog, at another point you just want to smash him with your heel. I was kind of excited when you said they came with an NDI. I mean, with a release form. I'm just happy that they were at least that professional to ask you that, and that they were trying to at least try.
They got no footage of me that day.
They were, you just bad cup of coffee or something.
No, I don't drink coffee.
At some point, you got to grow, and they were trying to do that, and you were just the wrong guy in that process. Now, I get the over enthusiastic part, and I'm off the caffeine for that very purpose, but to encourage and channel that wanting to grow. So that's where
I think for me, a lot of it is the intent, and and how somebody. I have a problem with entitlement. I have a severe problem with
Going
entitlement.
there.
They felt entitled to be able to capture this behind the scenes, and the fact that they tried to just push that on me literally on the show day. It's like, no, we're not going to play that game.
Well, that was probably the cameraman that was told by the producer, and the cameraman was pretty excited that he had a camera, and the producer was pretty excited that he had a cameraman. So it's what is the difference between an amateur and a professional, I think, is what we're talking about here. And that's becoming very gray, because it's no longer about the $100,000 piece of equipment. It's about the
pay too much for that phone.
You can also make the argument.
And the hand model union has blacklisted you, Chris.
I'm fine with that.
Well, you can also make the argument, am I here as crew or am I here as a performer? Now, if you're paying me twice, if you're paying me as crew and you're paying me as a performer, I'll sign your release and then I'm fine.
It was
but you're
purely
asking me
the
to
entitlement. That should have been cleared. I should have been given that option when I took the job. Oh, by the way, there's going to be, oh no, I don't want to do that. Anyway, Stuart.
A good behind the scenes crew is part of the production meetings well before the event, not turning up on the day. Now, for what Paul was saying before about behind the scenes, I'm about to post 2 links into the chat for a road reel entry that we did back in 2017. Part of the road reel is that you have to make a behind the scenes of making your film. And our film was a behind the scenes of another film. So here's the link for the film, which is called Lovers Lost. And
it's very wide aspect ratio.
Yeah, anamorphic. And that is the link to the making or the behind the scenes indie film of Lovers Lost. So one is the behind the scenes of a behind the scenes film. And yes, it's a Blackmagic design camera and a Lomo NAP32 anamorphic parked in front of a Pentax lens.
All right,
So
let's
it's
move
very
on.
meta.
Yeah, I'm sorry if my anger that day was
No, this was a great
unbounded or-
discussion. This was a beautiful deconstruction of
my anger.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, Chris. Yes, welcome to the group. So, no, this is a great deconstruction of the enthusiasm versus professional attitude versus amateur, because the tools are now free for everybody. I keep referring to these Blackmagic cameras as Uzis we're handing to small children, but that's a different conversation.
Let's move on. Eddie Scott from Mission Viejo, California, beautiful part of the coast. What's the history of the office hour mic check? It has been there forever so far as I know, but did it develop from nowhere? I think what you'd find, Eddie, is if you could go back and see all of the earliest shows, is there was a moment where Alex decided he wanted to up the game a little. There were certain people that were that sounded great, and the variance. You know, if a few people sound really good and everybody else sounds bad, it's a problem. If everybody sounds bad, you might be better off, actually, as opposed to everybody sounding good. And obviously what you really want is everybody sounding good. So it was an attempt to up the game. And if you look back, I mean, I actually used to do the sound check, and I was just, we didn't have meters like Mickey sets up, and I was like, yeah, you could be a little louder, you could be a little quieter, and I don't know what I'm doing. And then Mickey got pulled into it, and he does a much better job. But the idea is that when you watch this on YouTube, or if you're listening to it like you can in the Mukana tool, if there's a consistency in the audio space, it's easier to digest and to absorb it all. So we did not do it in the beginning. We purposely do it, and you can watch it on Zoom, of course. We've talked about doing it as a YouTube link just to show what, as an example, because as people are doing more and more virtual events, everybody just expects people to like whip open their laptop and it sounds great. and people need to see how much work it takes to make it sound good. Sky, then Bill, then Mickey.
And I also want to, again, in the origin story, Tucker Drago, he there we go. And then he handed the baton off to Mickey, and Mickey picked it up and ran it another. So whoever baton Mickey hands it off to, or whatever that story goes. But again, you guys continue to be my heroes, because in your specialties, you bring something to the party. And thank you.
Skull Candy. Bill.
I might have been accidentally a part of that, because I used to come in the first maybe 15 or 20 shows from the voice booth, sitting in front of a Neumann with zero noise of any kind. So, and I spent a lot of time doing voice work, so I do have a pretty trained voice. So it was that combination. I would imagine that somebody heard that and went, well, wow, that sounds different. There's no hiss, there's no mess, there's just that voice. So there you go.
Mickey.
Yeah, I think back then it was Brian Maddox and then Tucker that were sharing the responsibilities to do the mic checks. And as Chris Fenwick mentioned, that it was all by ear back then. We didn't have the meters, and I believe it was Tucker that suggested, hey, why don't I throw up an actual meter, have it on screen while we do the mic checks? And I pretty much, took that on when Tucker had to start drop out of the panel to actually do work.
Good for him.
I know he's working, but we've got to get Tucker back at some point. I miss him, and I miss Charlie, his dog.
Moving on. Victor Alvarez from Bellingham says, I asked the other day about a USB mic for an MS Surface laptop for Zoom meetings. Bose, I think he means Bose, it says boss, doesn't.
Boss.
Oh, no, his boss doesn't want a headset. Victor suggested the Bumblebee, which model, and can it be used far enough to be out of frame? Other mic recommendations. Paul, let's go to Paul. Paul has a lot of mics.
Yeah, I recommend the Audio Technica ATR 2100, and I have a Bluetooth setup on this. I can't get to work right now with Portal. It's something I'll talk to Guy about. But that's.
I think we didn't we decide that Portal didn't like using any external mics?
We did. We decided that. Yeah. We did decide that.
Mickey,
but
you had your hand up.
This as a USB mic. You can see the USB connector right there.
Yep.
See right there. There you go.
Mickey?
Yeah, I believe Victor mentioned the Bumblebee I think the Worker Bee. And yeah, in terms of getting it off frame, you really want it to be as close as possible, like similar to this. Thank you, Chris Fenwick, for forcing me to get this mic much closer.
It was way far away for a while.
Yeah, it was here. Yeah. But yeah, for the Worker Bee, similar kinds of mics, like large diaphragm condensers, you really want it to be as close as possible. If you can't get the mic inside the frame, or like really up close to you, like say less than a foot, a wired lav should do fine.
Only because I can. I'm going to show you what I do. So here's my mic, and it's right in front of my my screen here. I should probably do this. Hey, Mickey. So and I just sit, like, hold on, can I do this? And I just sit here, and it's literally right out of frame. So if I go back to my camera, it's right here. It's, that far away and just out of frame, just below the frame.
Show camera 2 again. I'm kind of loving into your vertical monitor concept.
Oh, you've never done that?
Well, not intentionally.
So what I'm doing here, basically during office hours, I have Mimo and Discord and my camera controls, but I also use it for scripts, long PDFs.
Sure.
And then I have the typical second display. So that's.
Are you running on a laptop? What do you know?
No, this is a iMac Pro.
with 3 outputs. Oh, iMac.
I will tell you, it barely runs the 2 monitors. Like
Yeah,
sometimes if I plug another device in, crane cam. Sometimes if I plug another device in, it like just power. If I just plug something into the power strip, the 2 side monitor, everything freezes. The side monitors click in and out. It's kind of it's right on the ragged edge of actually working.
I'm actually doing, I guess, how many monitors do I have up? I have so I've got an iPad there, my phone here, both of those plumbed into the A10 Mini. I've got the prompter monitor, I've got the overhead monitor up there, and I've got a monitor on the side, which I can't show, which is running something else. And so I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
And those are all plugged into your laptop?
All plugged into a MacBook Pro. And it's running everything.
We have got to talk. And
Okay.
that tiny Adirondack chair is just unique. Whatever
Stuart.
that is.
Chris, just for the budget suggestion on the microphone, my microphone is about the same distance away from me as yours, only it's above me instead of below. And it's the Nextech one from JCar. Does anybody find that there's any difference with how the room sounds, whether the mic's up or down? And also, I'm looking at a total of 6 screens.
Okay. So, you know what? I've tried to put the mic above, and I just have never liked the sound of it. And this is a little weird because sometimes if I'm typing, I don't type well, so I'm looking around it. But I can also just swing it out of the way and work when I'm not on camera. Guy? I'm sorry, Sky?
Oh, the other guy, Sky. So I'm going to just throw in a thing with regards to countdown, completely off topic, completely different subject. I was looking for a countdown. There's a website that is like a Canva, but it can create a countdown for you. And it was a thing. And I didn't know where to put it or post it. So I just thought I'd shout it out, and I'll put it in the link. Thanks.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes and 3 more quick questions. Let's just bang through these. Tony Mobley says, how many of the panelists are adjusting their lighting during office hours? I do a little bit, only because in this location, I get a little bit more impact from the sunlight. Paul? And then Stuart, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I adjust my lighting because I've got these blinds that go up and down. They're kind of translucent, so I can let in more or less sunshine.
All right. Stuart?
It's the middle of the night. Why do you need to adjust your lights?
There was somebody that we were talking to, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Lawrence, who said, because I made a comment about, wow, it looks great. And he says, oh, it's really hard, because he's literally adjusting it like every 15 minutes as the color of the room changes because of the daylight. So
yeah, it used to drive me nuts. This office, I've got a big window to my right and a tall, even bigger window to my left, and I had to cut out white, thick, not the little thin foam core, but big foam core, and knock those windows down, or I would have had in the early days constant shifts over the sunrise time. Okay. So you just got to control the light in the room.
Paul says, what are you watching on TV, Netflix, Amazon, etc. right now? What would you recommend? Really, Paul? We'll take 2. I'm going to take 2 answers and then we're done. This could have been a whole second hour. Stuart, then Jeff. Francis.
I've actually been on a kick going through old movies, old sci-fi series to see what the camera techniques were, and I can tell you there is a lot more split diopter than you would realize. But also the new one, Raised by Wolves, it is so dreary. There is no plot. It's hard.
Okay, Jeff Francis, and then I do want to go to Tony also.
HBO documentary on Nexium called The Vow.
Okay, so I'm going the other way, Paul. Since I've been a part of office hours, I am not watching TV. I'm doing homework. I'm doing homework trying to get better every day. So I'm just throwing money away because I have Prime Video, I have HBO Max, I have Netflix, I have Amazon Prime Video. I have all of them. So
I will say that my most favorite thing to watch right now is on YouTube, and it's called Matt's Off-Road Recovery. And it's a guy in Utah who goes and pulls people out of the sand, and it's fascinating. I just love it.
Okay, Tony, I'm just going to say congratulations for being a part of the solution and not a part of the problem.
Tony's next question, last question. Tony says, I was just wondering, is there an updated list of lighting options for use with office hours, low and mid-range cost? I don't know that there might be. I think there's a whole channel, Discord channel on lighting. Is there not? Yeah. So I'm sure there's different things. China balls are super cheap. You can get them at like IKEA. Just put a big bright light in it. It's a nice soft light. But I would, again, based on what we've seen this morning, Tony, I would go for more daylight for you and stay away from the warmer incandescent lights.
If he's staying in that location.
Well, yeah.
Amen
and
on
again,
that.
daylight color temperature,
Right. You want to look for something that's like 5,600 degrees Kelvin or above. That'll usually be listed on most of even the inexpensive LED sources on Amazon and place like that. So stay away from the lower ranges, 3,200. That's why you're getting the yellowy warm stuff. Stay up 56,000 and above and you'll be great.
Ice blue or candle warm?
Stuart had a good suggestion a couple of weeks ago. What were those, Stuart?
They're the LED Vance LED panels that are actually designed for office like, and as you can see, I've been flicking the color temper just to be a pain. But for looking at Tony's setup, looking at Tony's setup, I would actually look at investing in some white foam core bounce on the opposite side of you to where the window is to bring some more soft bounce light. I don't think any of us except maybe Mickey and Guy would be under 40 in this panel. So we all need all the soft fill that we can get.
No, Mickey's like 72. He's just from the Philippines.
I wasn't going to go with the stereotype.
All right. Let's move on.
Sorry, Mickey.
That's it for today. Thanks everybody for showing up. Hope everybody learned some stuff. I know I did. Chat's still going. Discord is open all day long, of course. Actually, I think we might close it for about 5 minutes at midnight. No Discording from 11:55 to midnight. Just take 5 minutes off. Okay?
Which time zone?
All of them, Mickey. All of them. Anyway, that's it. I guess we don't do music. Is that true? We don't do music anymore? All right, let's just pretend we're hearing the music. I'm gonna pretend I'm hearing it.
Did we get a takedown on Victor Sax music?
And we're just listening and we're listening. So here's what's coming up. Today's Monday. Tomorrow's gonna be, I think, audio related stuff, maybe. Wednesday might be camera related stuff. Somebody mentioned who the guest was on Thursday. I think Graham Care. All right, that's cool. That's a big deal. And then Friday and Saturday are education, and I hope to see you all soon. One day when we're all together, there's a great story I wanted to tell you about that I'm not going to do. Now I forgot what that was. Anyway, we're done. Goodbye. Feels weird without the music. Is it just me?